Well, hello and welcome to another episode of More Perfect Marketing. It's David Baer here. Today, we're going to be talking about one of my very favorite topics, email marketing. And to help me in this endeavor, we have somebody who actually does this for a living, writing emails, conceiving of the entire process, framework, structure of what an email, individual email and email sequence, email campaigns might look like. We'll get into what, the difference is and why you actually think about email beyond just the individual one. And I got to say, I've been a consumer of emails since the very, very beginning of email time. In fact, my very first job back in the mid 90s that was related to marketing at all was building an email list. And it was back when people like opened every freaking email they got because they were so excited that when they logged into AOL.com or Prodigy or whatever the hell they had at the point. I
MSN.
can't, no,
Oh,
MSN came later. Man,
oh,
that
really?
no,
Okay,
no,
because
no,
I
no,
was
no.
talking MSN ages.
Yeah. No, I'm thinking like, early to mid 90s.
Okay, yeah.
And
Oh,
they still were getting discs in the mail
yes,
to start their and they would have to connect with their modem.
yes.
That's when I started in email marketing. And I was at that time doing classical music and dance and performing arts promotions, and we were selling, tickets to concerts and things back in the day. There's a lot more that's sold via email these days. And a lot of different types of businesses exist now that didn't exist back then.
Mhm.
And so today's guest is going to sort of walk us through how she approaches email in business types that are very much, late 20th, early 21st century business types as well. So you're probably wondering, I mean, you've heard her already, who today's guest is. If you're watching the video, then you already can see Chelsea Beauchamp, or as she likes to go by Chelsea B. Chelsea, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, David. This is awesome. I'm
Indeed.
excited.
Awesome. Hey, I promised you that if I did nothing else, I would ramble in the opening of our conversation here. I absolutely fulfilled on that promise. And now I have set you up to talk about a whole bunch of things that I promised in the very short time we have together. So we probably should get to it.
Let's
Um,
get
yeah, let's talk a little bit about the work that you do and the types of clients you're serving, because it is a very different type of business environment these days than when I started.
yeah. Yeah, that's, I mean, excellent, because this would, some of what we could talk about and what I think we will talk about could apply universally, to really any type of business if you want to set yourself apart. But I do work by and large with, subject matter experts, coaches, thought leaders, service providers. That's who I serve. And the reason I love that so much is because they do they're typically so passionate about what they do. They really do have a message. They more than likely have some kind of story you can dig into and feature and highlight in your marketing. So I absolutely love it.
There is something that I think is also common in that type of business that is either personality driven or person driven
Yeah.
that gives you opportunities to do stuff in communications in a way that a brand or a product doesn't. And I wonder if you can spend a little bit of time sort of breaking that out and talking about what opportunities that gives you as a writer and a communicator.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, even and as a business owner too, because I do find, I work for a lot of writers. So I write for a lot of people who have written New York Times best-selling books and things like that. They love to write. The last thing they want to write is their effing emails. You know what I mean? So, but it's a great opportunity to build relationships. And that's truly, if you are passionate about what you do and you're personality driven, and you like to create, the opportunity in front of you is to build not just a list of subscribers, but a list of readers, a list of relationships. And that's a list of, I like to call them the 5 R's. It's like referrals, relationships, revenue. I mean, reviews. You can get all kinds of R's out of a relationship with people that's built on authenticity and who you
Mhm.
really are and your real natural voice. what ends up happening a lot of times is people will have a sense of, this is who I am and these are my stories and this is how I write. But then there really is, and I feel like I'm preaching to the choir here, but maybe if you listener, maybe you don't know this, but there is a craft specifically to email copywriting and crafting an email that is just so specific to email. You've got pieces you don't have in a book or a chapter. You've got a subject line, you've got preview text, you've got a lead, you've got, then you've got the body copy, you've got a call to action, you've got all of these pieces that if you're not familiar with how to structure an email or how to take a story and turn it into an email, you might miss. I don't like to, create a bunch of fear, but it's like there are opportunities if you know how to craft an email well.
Okay, there's a few different directions I want to go. So let's just pick up on what you just put out there, which is about how to structure emails, and maybe you can talk about it through the lens of like what a business is trying to accomplish with email, where they're trying to get people who have raised their hand and say, I want to be part of your list, part of your world, part of your community. What email does well, and I think perhaps what it doesn't do well.
That's a good question. And I love what you said. Like if I could communicate that to your listener right now, do know that, do determine that for yourself. What is my goal? Like in the very beginning, if you're just starting out with an email list, what is it that I'm trying to accomplish here? Am I trying to, sell something via email? Am I trying to get somebody on a strategy call? Am I just building a list because I'm going to do something with it one day and I think I might, whatever, sell affiliate products or programs. So do know your goal. And then I'm sorry, I got real excited about that. What was the other part of your question?
Well, knowing the goal, I think is one part, but then what you can and what you can't effectively accomplish
Oh,
when you're
yeah.
using email. Where is it probably not best when you're communicating in that medium? And quite frankly, I've asked the question, and now I'm thinking, I don't know that I can come up with a scenario where it's not actually good.
I know. And you're talking to someone who is like die-hard, passionate email. I'm like, no, you can do everything with email.
Yeah.
And you can, you really can, but I don't know if I have an answer, but I would say there are ways you would go about a different, you would approach a particular goal. Your process will be different. Your framework will be different depending on what you're trying to achieve, what you say when. And now I'm talking about in a campaign, say, for example, not even just in individual emails, but when someone first subscribes, what you say today, what you say tomorrow and the next day, and so on and so forth. But I think you can do everything with email. I think you can sell a $25 million program on email. I think you can sell a free strategy call on email.
Well, okay, let's talk about that a little bit. And I'm just jumping ahead and making an assumption that our brilliant, smart, sophisticated listeners understand the different types of applications of email in terms of where you can communicate, how you can structure a campaign or a sequence of emails to move somebody from one place to another. I'd love for you to walk us through something like what you've just talked about. Email's ability to accomplish some very heavy lifting, things that in many worlds you would say, well, no. You need to get somebody on the phone and you need to have a conversation with them and you need to have sort of a sales process that has a diagnostic discussion with them. How do you do those things using email instead?
My God, who knew we were going to end up here? And I'm so glad we are. This is so cool. Okay, so let's take the case that your end goal is you want to sell a program. And your typical sales process, look, I'm not saying dump your sales process or dump your strategy call, but here's something you could consider if you wanted to do a little split test. There is a way to bring people in to your email list as a reader and build a relationship such that You don't necessarily have to have that call, or that by the time you get on that call, you are absolutely 100% certain you're talking to a well-qualified hot lead. All you basically have to do is, sign them up. But I'm not promising the moon here. You know what I mean? Because I don't
Mhm.
know. I don't know. But I've seen it done. So what I would recommend there, and what I know is possible, is you bring them in. Let's say they opt in for some sort of lead magnet, right? We're assuming everyone knows here your lead magnet is something that's compelling. You bridge a gap. You tell them a little bit about what this other place is they want to go. You create a gap, you bridge it, and then your program is the way to really achieve that thing, right?
Mhm.
Like, let's say they want to build a business. So your program is going to really teach them how to build a business. So you create that, and then my go-to, and I think where people could really lean into something that might feel uncomfortable but could really really work for them, is to email way more frequently than you think you should. Way more frequently. And there's so much about that. It's like, oh, I'll get more unsubscribes. And my philosophy is, I don't care about unsubscribes. If you don't want to hear from me, okay, great. It's good to know. It's good to. It's almost like this first email I see as first date. First email's first date. We like each other, we go on a date the next day. We like each other, we go on the date the next day. And we keep doing that until we hit a point where we decide, is this serious or is this not serious? Do we want to be friends, or do we want to, take this to the next level? And so that can usually take, I'd say between 7 and 14 days of emailing every single day. And if you want to avoid the strategy call or make sure they're super qualified, this is what's so exciting about this age of AI. And I want to talk to you about AI, but another time. I really believe there's going to be so much crap content, and everything is just going to be so homogenized, that if you're standing out and you're having actual conversations with someone, that will make a difference. And you can do that on email. So I'm literally talking about, hey, emailing someone, what are you trying to achieve, back and forth. Okay, yeah, give them some advice. Like, have a bit of that sales conversation asynchronously on email, until when you get them on the phone, it's like, yeah, let's just hop on the phone and get you in the program. Does that make sense?
It does. Are you talking about in the scenario that you just laid out, it's not all automation, but that at some
Right.
point there is manual email conversation happening?
Yeah, you can automate to a an application, or a Calendly link. You can. It's effective. It does work. I'm not discounting that it works. I think what you said about the listener being smart and, being passionate about what they're doing,
Mhm.
that there's an opportunity to personalize it a bit more. So you run them through an automation, absolutely. But when you start to get the sense, hey, they're opening all the time, or they clicked a particular link, which tells me they're really interested, you can reach out directly and have that conversation really one-on-one. I think the age of, like, you know, putting someone on a pedestal and having
Mhm.
this fake, you can't talk to me unless you apply and you
Yeah.
qualify. I think that that's going by the wayside in favor of actual, true, real relationships. Maybe not for everyone, but especially a small business.
Well, what you described there, I think, a lot of the email software makes it easier to be able to jump in and do something manually once somebody has, self-qualified themselves. They've
Yeah.
taken an action, and the email software can alert you,
Yeah.
"Hey, so and so just clicked on their third, time that they've clicked on a link to go over and watch that video.
Yep.
Maybe you should pick up the phone and give them a call now," right? You could build that into your software.
100%. Text them, email them, give them a call. Absolutely. Yeah, you can build that in. Yeah. And I would say this is the other thing that I would just be wary of, is there's so much you can do. There is the world is your oyster. When in doubt, keep it really, really simple. Complexity, more room for error. But that's a beautiful way to use email, is to alert you once someone's taken a certain
Yeah.
action that you've determined is
We
their.
we actually we have a financial advisor we worked with, several years ago, who's, in Houston, and he had some sort of alert to track how many times his weekly, market status was opened by somebody, and when they opened and clicked on the link X number of times, it would be added to his call list or his follow-up list, right? So that's fairly simple. It's not using all of the technologically advanced capabilities of the software, but it said, hey, this is somebody who is actually engaged, and you may not have ever spoken to them, but they've been opening your emails week after week after week. Maybe you want to advance that relationship.
Yes. Yes, and there's even the potential, if you want to keep it really simple, is you just trigger an automated single email to that person based
Mhm.
on the criteria. And that email is as simple as, hey, you want to jump on a call? Or, hey, I noticed you opened my email this many times, you
Yeah.
opened my stats or whatever this many times. What did you think? You want to
Hmm.
jump on a call? So yeah, there's so many things you can do. I
Yeah.
think it's important to back up, not in our conversation, but as a business owner, really, like, it can get so you're in the weeds, right? But if you can back up and just get on the mountaintop for a second, because we get so busy marketing, and look at the whole thing holistically and map out what would be the simplest. It's a big principle for me, minimalism, obviously. What's the most elegant way that I can move someone from, a initial subscriber to doing business with me? And that would be the objective.
I want to shift gears a little bit, but still stay in the area that we're talking about right now, which is understanding how to utilize email to either bring prospective clients closer to you as a business, or to just start building out that structure, that framework of using email in the first place. When you are working with a client and you are engaged by them to help them with email as a medium for communication, what does that typically look like? Do they already have the email in use, and you're helping them improve and fine tune? Are they getting started with it? Where does that make the most sense, for you to be working with a business?
Yeah, I've done both. I do both. I do itty bitty list committee clients, and I do, oh my God, this is just a mess of spaghetti noodles email marketing. So I've done both. But in both cases, or all, you've got somewhere in the middle there. I would say in all cases, the aim is to simplify. Usually with the smaller businesses
Mhm.
are just starting out, a teeny tiny list, or, just, starting their business, we aim to put in one automation that leverages all of the I work with a lot of people who can't stop creating. I don't know if you know these people, but they just can't stop making lead magnets. So we find a way to leverage everything that they've done, but simplify it.
Mhm.
And then you've got the bigger clients that where, oh God, we're running all kinds of affiliate offers or webinars, and they've got, huge lists with tons of segments and tagging. And honestly, a big part of my job there is to simplify things, just to
Mhm.
remove a lot of the complexity so the whole thing runs smoother, so that ultimately we're using email as really the primary. It's like, do all of your outbound marketing, but then email is your primary inbound marketing tool. That is the way that you take someone by the hand from wherever they came and walk them to wherever it is that you want them to be, whether that's a sales page or a challenge or a webinar or a sales call or what have you. So I do both, but ultimately it's trying to keep it simple wherever possible.
And so I guess, one of the things that I said I wanted to understand from you is where personality
Yeah.
comes into play. And so if you're taking on a client who already has this stuff built,
Yeah.
what is the shift, if any, in the style and tone of the way that the communications are written? Right? That's that one scenario where it already exists. And then there's the other scenario where you're just getting started and you got to figure out, okay, you've not done this before. How do you
Yeah.
want to show up?
Yeah, it's so good. Both are so fun, you know? I would say typically with an established personality, you know, like they really know who they are and they're who they are in their emails and in their social posts and everywhere, in their marketing, in their books and such. That's when the real tweaking and modifying is just to the potency of the emails themselves, the structure of the emails. So, you know, I just a hot tip number one from Chelsea B, the minimalist marketer. I would say, read your email. And I don't even know where I got this. This is some nugget I got along the way, but read the email you're about to send out, find your best line and move it to the top. I do a lot of that. I do a
Mhm.
lot of moving the best line to the top or finding a best line, you know, writing a best line. So, you know, in many cases, it's a great email, but there's nothing that grabs you. And that lead is like, I mean, if your first line doesn't grab someone, I mean, you know, you may as well kiss the opportunity to buy. So
Yeah.
put a strong lead in there. And then for people, and that's just to finesse, you're not changing their voice. That in that case, I'm not changing a client's voice. I'm leveraging their voice and what they're doing,
Mhm.
just making it a little more potent. And then for someone starting out, I have a flag that I build out where, you know, I happen to be a proud lesbian, and so not proud enough. Probably I'm not very good at being gay. I'm not very political, but I have a pride flag, and I just it's their own personal pride flag. It
Mhm.
goes through, you know, this is how I want to land for people in terms of tone and personality, and here are the things I want to talk about, and here are the things I stand for. And that's a beautiful little document that actually I didn't intend to do this, but when people go and sign up for my emails,
Mhm.
I'll give them that pride flag. I'm happy to share that with people and they can get a sense of, you know, getting their
I'm
own.
like envisioning this, and like for every stripe, there's another step or
That's
something.
right.
Is that it?
That's
Okay,
right. Yep. For
cool.
every stripe and for every carrot stripe and then for the circle. Each
Yes.
thing has its piece. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I've discovered as over time, you know, more and more communities are included in that flag, that flag is ever expanding, and so
Yes.
the version you just described is one that, you know, didn't exist, you know, a few years ago. So yeah. Um, okay, I want to go back to the sort of the difference there, because the first one is like working through and building a public personality. That's the last part that you described, but earlier you were talking about the idea of really taking stuff that already exists and reformatting it or reframing it. And this goes back to, you know, the famous quote from Eugene Schwartz about copy isn't written, it's assembled.
Yes.
And
Mm.
and I think that's an important piece, because very often it's a lot easier for us to come into a situation working with the client and looking at whether it's email or otherwise, assets that they already have, and how can we utilize it. And so I'm wondering, kind of, what does that look like, from the vantage point of a business coming in and saying, okay, Chelsea, I love what you do, I need you to help me too, what should I expect you're going to be guiding me through, and what are the things that I would want to have like at the ready to give you, to say, here's what we've done so far.
Mm-hmm. In terms of collecting your content, and this is something that I absolutely love doing in the beginning, and I recommend everyone does this, just get all of it. I mean, your book, your PDFs, your videos, your social posts, your everything, and put it in the hat, because it's all, you know, you can leverage all of that and your ideas. Get your ideas in there too. I also want to do this lead magnet. I also want to do that webinar. I also want to put that all in the hat. And then, you know, I like to go about the my real heavy lifting in the beginning is, how do I take this mess, really, you know, ultimately, and turn it into something that makes a difference, that, like you said, moves someone from this place to that place. And that's some of my favorite work. And that's just the strategy. You know, we
Mhm.
take everything and and I make recommendations on where to put what so that it makes sense. So it guides someone, you know, through a journey. The other thing I love doing is I'll take a piece. I have an example of an email where a client wrote an email and I was uh, editing it. and I made that email into 7 emails. There's such possibility, because copy is not written, it is assembled.
Mhm.
You reassemble it, you've got a new email,
Yeah.
so I love doing that. I love doing that. Um, yeah, it's sort of like the process would be clutter clear,
Mhm.
and then build. And I like to build on 2 principles, the principle of minimalism and simplicity, and then the principle of woo, intuition, magic, what feels right, what do I
Yeah.
love? What gives me the chills, that kind of stuff.
You talked about taking that email and turning it into 7, and I was thinking actually in a very different scenario, which is taking something that is long and expansive and covers lots of different topics and saying, "You don't have 1 email here, you
Yeah,
have 7 different emails." But it
yeah.
sounded like you were just rearranging and repositioning that. I've seen this happen. In fact, I work with an organization locally here that, that has, up until I got involved, sent out a single monthly, really long email.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, with all the things. Yes. Uh-huh.
But to go back to I mean, the core point of the name of your business, minimalist, right? Talk about the advantages of minimalism in communication.
Oh God. I mean, simple, streamlined email marketing, honest to God, that can simplify and streamline all of your marketing. Because I think of that as like your email marketing is like your marketing back end. If that's simple and clean, you know exactly what's happening when someone subscribes, you know exactly the course they're taking. I mean, I limit segmenting and tagging and all of that to as few paths as possible. My real guiding principle on segmenting is if the end product is completely different, sure, segment. Otherwise, just be really clear in your communication, and then they segment themselves, they read what's relevant to them or they don't,
Mhm.
and they don't read what's not. But the advantages of minimalism are exactly what you said. It's almost like, I can't remember. I wish I had this uh, ready for this conversation, but there is a place where they only have 1 knife. And it's the knife that does everything. It's the knife that cuts the bread and the meat and and the lettuce and the
Mm,
fruit. And I can't remember what it
okay.
is. It's a very nice knife. Every family has 1 beautiful knife that's probably handed down for generations or
Mhm.
whatever. This is not the story. It should be the story. So it's kind of like that. What is your 1 knife? And I like I suppose I'm just a proponent of email marketing being your 1 knife, or you could look at it like your Swiss Army knife that does all of the things for you, um, but in the simplest way.
Mhm.
And I guess what you were sort of speaking to is the power of minimalism and communication, specifically in email. Is this is the only place, and I stole this. I can't remember who said it. Maybe it was Laura Belgray, actually, who I happen to love, who said email is the the place where you're having like the most intimate, it's the only opportunity to have this intimate conversation with someone
Yeah.
in the privacy of their own inbox. And you know, it, it's a totally different conversation than social or short form content. You can go so deep, you can ask great questions, you can really truly build a relationship, but you want to do that thoughtfully. Like, you don't want to do that, you want to do it like dating. Your first date, you ask some important questions. Next date, you get to know each other. It's a slower, it's a slow but thoughtful progression toward deeper intimacy is really the opportunity that you have.
Yeah. I was watching, I don't know how many years ago now, a training on NLP, neuro linguistic programming,
Yeah.
and how you can get away with doing certain things using NLP in email that you can't in any other copy medium because of the intimacy and the one-to-one discussion, personalization, and other things that I think make somebody feel like you're really talking to them in a way that, feels very, very deep and personal. So I can appreciate that.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I am a former hypnotherapist. And
Mhm.
so I studied a lot of NLP as a hypnotherapist. It's absolutely true. I mean, the psychology of email marketing, it's exactly what you said. You have an opportunity to have such a different quality of conversation than you do in other mediums. I mean, do other mediums. You need lead gen. You have
Yeah.
to have people subscribing, but once you're in there, that's where I have a client who covers very sensitive, actually two clients, one in the past and one current, who cover very, very intimate subject matter. And you would be amazed at what we talk about with people in emails. I mean, just their deep, intimate, private lives. You can't do that. You can't do that in other places.
Yeah.
I mean, you get shut down. Really, you get shut down. So
Okay. Well, there's so much I want to circle back on and talk
me too.
about, and we're pretty much out of time at this point. I did want to sort of revisit this concept of personality in email, and you and I have had a conversation about your own email list that you're developing right now, and there's a very clear personality that is projected from your website, the style that you portray yourself, right? And how I think the words you use, the made up words that one uses, right? Things like that that I think can add flavor to the communication as well. And I wonder, before we actually send folks over to your website to check out what I'm referring to, I wonder if you can talk a little bit about what informs that when you're writing on behalf of or working with a client in terms of how that comes through, how their personality or quote unquote personality for email shows up.
Mhm. Well, pre-recording, we were talking about Justin Blackman as sort of the go-to guy on voice. He's great. I would say I think I have two guiding principles, okay? One is clarity beats cute. Just be clear. But then you gotta be cute.
Mhm.
You gotta be something. You gotta be punchy, or you gotta take a stand. There really does have to be something that has you stand out from, AI generated content, or your buddy who's doing the same business as you, or all the coaches in your mastermind, and doing the almost like I don't want to sound too woo woo, but like the soul work of what that is. What is my USP? What makes me different? What is it that would have someone do business with me and not with all these other, let's say, coaches
Mhm.
or chiropractors or what have you? So that's a strategic conversation you can have with somebody like me or yourself, or they can do it on their own, but it is important. And I feel like that's something you add, in my process of writing. It's really important to write down what you want someone to get out of this piece, write it straight, and then add that punch, add that flavor, add that flair so that it's enjoyable to read,
Mm.
even in storytelling, which email is such a great storytelling medium. I love telling stories, you want to get, before you tell your story, and I work with a lot of clients on stuff like this. They'll have a story they want to tell. They won't even know how to tie it to an offer, and it's like, okay, well, write the story first, and then we'll find how you find that bridge piece to,
Yeah.
to tie it to an offer. But write the story straight first, and then come in and add the punch and the power.
Mhm. I love it, and I don't want to be the one serving clients out there doing the work with them. I'm just a fan and student of the craft. So for folks who do want somebody knowledgeable and capable, we should probably tell them where they can find you.
We can, yes. Yes, and I'm happy I can do it with you. I can do it for you. Both of those things are possible. So yes, they can come to the minimalistmarketer.co, because as I said earlier, I didn't want to pay $4,000 for an M at the end of my domain name. So the minimalistmarketer.co.
Excellent. Well, this has, as the topic of email has always been a fun one for me. This has been an exceptionally fun conversation.
You literally wrote 2 books on the topic. So I am thrilled to be having this conversation with you. Yeah, this was great. We got to do this more often.
Well, I'd love to have you back, Chelsea Beauchamp or Chelsea B.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for hanging out with me.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Folks, you've been listening to More Perfect Marketing. If you know somebody who could benefit from the conversation you just heard, and I'm pretty sure you do, please send them our way. Until next time, I'm David Baer. Take care.